welcome back to the channel and to another intro to sewing video. Today I'm going to be showing you guys how to make your very own pin cushions. This is a good first project for anyone sewing on a sewing machine for the very first time, and honestly you're going to need a pin cushion moving forward in your sewing journey. If you guys are excited for this video, make sure you hit that thumbs button, and if you haven't yet, subscribe down below. Without further ado, let's sew. This is the very first pin cushion I ever made. You can see my lovely stitches right there, and I still have it to this day. This is the first one I made using like embroidery fancy stitches. I had a sewing machine that had some special stitches on it, so I tried it out, and I still have it as well because you never have too many pin cushions. They last forever.
The materials you'll need for this project are cotton fabric, scissors or shears, a hand sewing needle, a ruler or tape measure, polyfill stuffing, thread, and pins. The fabric I chose is just a basic quilter's cotton. It's a leftover from a project that I had before, and I really liked the pattern. When you pick a pattern, be sure to pick one that you're going to be happy with, because the sewing pin cushion is going to be a frequent flyer in your sewing box. But you're going to want to iron out your fabric, make sure it's nice and straight, and fold it in half so you're going to get two pieces. I decided to use my rotary cutter so that I had nice straight edges. I then decided to cut a 5x5 square. You can also do a rectangular, circular, or any shape pin cushion you want, as long as you cut two of the fabric. When you're done cutting, you should have two squares of the same size, like this. Next, you're going to take both pieces of fabric and place them right sides together, so pretty sides together, and we're going to pin all the way around. When we sew, we're going to be leaving a gap, so I use a different color pin to remember where that gap is going to be. But if you want to make a mark using a marker, pencil, tailor's chalk, you can do that as well. Now that it's all pinned, we're going to go over to our sewing machine and make sure we are on a straight stitch. That's this black stitch on my machine. And our stitch length is going to be set to 2. Using normal tension. Coming over to the sewing machine, we're going to be sewing with a 1/4 seam allowance. On my machine, that's right up against the presser foot, making sure that we start with a reverse stitch. So we're going to sew a few stitches and then reverse. Removing our pins as we go, we're going to sew a straight line all the way down the first side. As we come to the edge, we're going to stop, and we're going to lower our needle down into the fabric. This is how we're going to turn a corner. With our needle down, lift your presser foot and turn the fabric. Put your presser foot back down and continue to sew. Coming up on our second corner, the same process, stopping with our needle down. We're going to lift our presser foot again, turn, and continue our third side. Coming up on the final side, remember that we're going to leave about 1 inch open. It'll be easier if you leave this opening in the middle. However, I left mine on the corner. When you come up to your opening, you're going to end your stitching with another reverse stitch. Reverse stitching will prevent your threads from unraveling. So there we go. My opening is right in between these two pins. Now that we're done sewing, we can go ahead and cut off our tails, and we're going to flip our fabric right side out. I usually roll the corners in my fingers to help them lay flat. You can also use a pen, pencil, or any kind of tool to help poke them out. Next, take your polyfill and start stuffing. You can stuff your pincushion as full as you want, just make sure that it is firm enough so that when you put your pin in, it doesn't go through to the other side. Basically, you want enough stuffing to catch your pins. A tip that I've learned from experience, make sure you have enough stuffing in there so that if you accidentally squeeze your pincushion, you don't accidentally stick yourself. Next, we're going to take a piece of our thread. It's the same one I used on my sewing machine, and we're going to start to hand sew this pincushion closed. So we're going to thread through the eye of the needle and bring our thread all the way down so that we have the same length of thread on both sides of the needle. Once those are even, we're going to tie it in a knot. I usually do a double knot so that it doesn't pull through my fabric. Now we're going to grab our pincushion, and the first thing we're going to go through with our needle on the underside of the fabric here and pull our thread all the way through so that the knot we just tied is on the inside of the pincushion. This is going to hide your knot in your tails. Next, we're going to fold in our raw edges so that they're not exposed. So we're going to want to sew on the seam line, which is going to be 1/4 inch with the seam allowance that we're using. So keeping those raw edges tucked in, we're going to be sewing a slip stitch, alternating sides back and forth to sew this closed. The smaller stitches, the better. You can also pin this hole closed to make it easier for you. I am not the best at hand stitching, I will say so myself. It's really a technique, you have to use it or you lose it. I love my machine, I machine sew everything I can, but on projects like this, you have to hand sew it closed. So going back and forth, alternating sides along the seam, we're going to continue that slip stitch. The point of a slip stitch is so that you don't see your threads. You want to pick a thread that is a similar color to your fabric so that if you do have any poking through, it's hidden. Once I've sewn all the way down my opening, I like to go back and go the opposite direction to make sure all the gaps are closed, but that's completely optional. Once you're ready to tie off your thread, you're going to stick your needle in like you're going to sew another stitch, but you're going to catch your loop here. Catching it on your finger, take your needle and go through the loop you just made, and we're going to pull it tight. This will make a knot. Do this about 2 or 3 times so that it doesn't pull through your fabric. Again, going through as if another stitch, catching our extra thread for a loop, putting our needle through the loop, and pulling it tight. Once we have it tied off, we can cut off our excess thread as close to the knot as we can, hiding any leftover tails. There you go, there's my slip stitch. Like I said, I'm not the best at hand sewing, but that's it. It's all completely closed, everything's ready, so go ahead and fluff your pin cushion, and all that's left to do is transfer your pins.
There you go, you have your brand new little pin cushion. I've got all of my pins in it, including my sewing needle. I like to keep my sewing needle sideways so I keep it separate from the pins and I don't lose it inside the pin cushion. But overall, it looks pretty good. Every beginner sewer has trouble with the hand stitching. I still have trouble hand stitching. Some people are just better at it than others. You can kind of see it if you look really closely, but far away you really can't tell where it is unless you're looking for it. So I'm overall happy with it. It's better than my very first sewing cushion I've ever made. So just as your experience gets better and as you get better sewing, you can make new pin cushions or you can keep your very original one as you go along as a funny memory. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you give it a thumbs up before you go if you learned anything, and subscribe down below for our next sewing video. But until next time, bye guys!